Hello, puppy. Do you know what the difference between closing and funding?
Okay.
Are you looking into buying a home in 2025? Here's a question for you. What is funding on a home and when do you get your keys?
And more important, what does funding mean in a real estate transaction?
Okay, so you've gone through the entire process. You've got it pre-qualified. You looked at homes. You're signed off on the home, and now closing's happening. But what's this magic word called funding, and what does it
Funding.
mean?
So pretty much that's when we have the buyer already signs, the seller already signs, everybody signs, and then the lender and the title company they start reviewing the paperwork. And once they say, hey, everything looks good, especially the lender, we're good to go, we're funded.
Yes, at this time, the lender reviews all the paperwork. Please keep in mind if there's one piece of paper that's missing, because it happened to one of our buyers. That buyer needed to go back all the way to the title company and sign that piece of paper.
Yes.
DocuSign was not accepted. It needed to be done with a wet signature.
Yeah, so every transaction, every type of loan that you have is different, right? So that's the reason why maybe they needed a wet signature.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then now the question is, what's the difference between closing and funding? Aren't they the same?
Well, closing is when you have your appointment to sign the paperwork, which is a big win because you're already there, right? You're signing, you're sitting on the closing table, your escrow officer, your agents, all the parties in the transaction. Well, the buying parties or the sellers, one of those two, right? And then funding is, like we said, once everything has been reviewed and approved.
Yeah. So just to give a recap, as
Mhm.
far as closing, all parties have signed. You have signed as a buyer.
Mhm.
The seller has signed as a seller. Everything's already been signed by the notary, which is in the title company. So that's all parties have already been doing that. Dogs have been in title. And then of course, when funding, this when everything the mortgage company reviews or the mortgage lender reviews everything, and everything gets dispersed to the loan for funding to the title company or the escrow company. Okay, why funding is the green light before getting your keys?
Well, because that's pretty much, again, when the lender says we're good to go, everything has been approved, verification of employment has been done, we made sure there's no additional expenses in your account, so you're good to go. Are you smiling?
Or any additional drama. I'm not sure if you can hear, but our dogs are playing downstairs.
Yeah.
So that's why we sound a little bit distracted. But when something like this happens, you just keep on going. So it's a green light from, so everything, all parties have already received the money,
Mhm.
their monies. So the mortgage company has already sent the funds to the title company. The title company pays off the mortgage for the seller. The seller gets their funds or any net proceeds that happens, and that's when the keys are released.
Mhm.
So what needs to happen for a home to fund?
Basically, what we're just telling you, make sure everybody signs. We need to see everybody in the transaction, all sellers, our buyers. Everybody needs to sign. And then, like Jesse said, we have the notary too. So the escrow officer that will notarize some documents, right? Everything gets reviewed and sent to the lender. And then title and lending, they say, okay, we're good to go. Lender gives the approval. Then title sends this the formal, or it's not formal, like
Yes, there's a congratulations email.
yes.
Congratulations, you're funded. That's when keys can be
That's
released.
key. That's what we need.
Yes, that's once that happens, you can actually a second later start moving into the home.
Hmm.
Before we receive that email or before we hear the word congratulations, a home has funded, we can't move in. You can have the keys in hand and you just look at the door and you can't move in. This is usually a concern when you do have sellers that are out of town. So you've already signed early in the morning, best practice.
Or
But
buyers.
or the
Sellers or
buyers,
buyers.
yeah, the buyers,
Hmm.
you have buyers or sellers, and then one of the things that happens is the sellers or the buyers are out of town. We can't fund or we can't close the transaction until both parties are signed. And there are certain times that certain mortgage companies are okay with fax copies, but most of the time they need to see the original
Yes.
ink dry paperwork in order to be able to fund on the home.
Exactly. It's just different procedures that they have, which is understandable.
Yes. And then want to know more about unique San Antonio neighborhoods and cool real estate stories to build wealth and learn the benefits of home ownership? Hit the subscribe button and follow the Garza home team. Okay, now let's continue. How long does funding typically takes after closing in San Antonio, Texas?
It might depend, like we said, on the transaction, but let's say everybody's in town, right? Everybody's signed at the title company. So once we have buyers and sellers signatures, I mean, it might depend on the lending and title. I will say about a couple of hours, 3 hours more or less.
Yes. So best practice is to
Worst case scenario.
yes, worst case scenario. Most of the time, okay, in the perfect world, it happens within 30 minutes. That's in the perfect world, but life happens. So one of the things is that it's best practice as a buyer and to a certain extent as a seller, because you want those funds to be wired to you, is to, that's my leg, it's not one of the
that's
dogs.
Cookie.
Oh, we have, okay, just to let you know, we have two dogs downstairs playing around. That's why you can hear the noise. And we have the two older dogs underneath us. But going back to what we're saying, best practice is to close early in the morning.
Yes.
Keep in mind, 8:30, we used to push for that to be able to close. But there's a lot of things that needs to be resolved at certain times. And
And just paperwork that needs to be reviewed by
yes.
title.
It's it's a little bit too stressful. It's a little bit things can get delayed. So best practice is to probably do 9, 9:30, 10, 11:30 at the latest. If you're a buyer, same thing with the seller. So wires usually get. I know you know more about the banking industry, but one of the things is that the wires get sent at a certain time. So
Yeah.
if you,
Oh, for the wires? So I know they have the cutoff time. If I'm not mistaken, it's around, if I'm not mistaken, please, I believe it's 3:30. That's when the cutoff time for the wires is, because it's coming from the federal, right? And then, so let's say, for example, we close and everybody signs on a Friday. So there might be sometimes a little bit of delays. If there delays happens with the wire or things like that, that we might not, which brings us to the next point, we might not be able to move in the same Friday. Unfortunately, we might get funding until Monday morning because it's business days.
yes,
Sorry.
business days. So one of the things is that heaven forbid you decide to close at 4 p.m. as a buyer or a seller at 4 p.m. on a Friday. It's not gonna fund until maybe Monday morning, Monday
Yeah.
afternoon. So you miss all that Saturday and Sunday to be able to move in. So
Yeah.
just be aware of that.
And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but it's not like really the title companies or the lender's fault. It's just unfortunately part of the process. Like if it gets after whatever time, then unfortunately it needs to be done the next business day.
Okay, here's another question for you. Can you move right after closing?
Unfortunately, not always.
Yes. In the perfect world, you would, but once again, it goes into the funding. So as soon as you close, you already giving you sent in your wire, you have your
Ugh,
cashier's check.
yes.
You can't technically grab those keys and start moving in immediately. We need to wait for the funding for all the green lights, all
The review,
the
all
reviews.
everything, all the okay from the lender and title. That's all we need.
So as soon as you have that, once you have the word funding, you can start moving in. And then another one, real life. Okay, as far as once again, it goes into closing. Best thing is to close in the mornings so you can fund in the afternoon and move that day. So,
Exactly.
but going back into that is that best practice is that you close on your home. Try to schedule something. If you're closing in the morning, hopefully it funds that day so you can start moving in the next day. So don't try to schedule everything perfectly, that everything's going to align, all the planets going to align.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a little hiccup that might happen. So best practice is to schedule closing a day, 2 days later,
Exactly.
just to be in the safe side.
Moving, you mean? Schedule moving.
As far as moving, tips to make everything go smoothly, like we mentioned before, is just schedule a little bit further out.
Everything in advance. So if let's say, like Jesse said, if you closing today and today, I don't know, happens to be Monday, try to schedule your movers and things like that, maybe for Tuesday afternoon, worst case scenario.
Just to be in the safe side. And then if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We're always here to help. And also, one of the things is that's going to happen is that if you know someone since you're watching this video, I know real estate is important for you, and you have any friend, family or your cousin, next door neighbor's best friend, second sister, relate that you met at the restaurant. Then ask one of these two questions. I've always wondered what my home is worth, and I've always wanted to buy a home, but I don't know where to start. Give them Rosa's name. Give them my name. Give them throw our name into the cowboy hat or business card into the cowboy hat, so we can give them same informational service that we provided you.
Mhm. Yep.
Deal?
Yep.
Also, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And as always, are you ready to make a move? The dogs are not barking.
But send us a DM.
Yeah, but send us a DM. Bye.
Bye.